Welcome to LeadOn the podcast for nonprofit leaders navigating change with intention. Brought to you by CNA. Social Impact Consulting, we explore what it really takes to lead with clarity, courage, and consistency in complex times. No binders, no buzzwords, just thoughtful conversations and practical guidance to help leaders and missions move forward. LeadOn is powered by Notebook LM and produced by CNA, Social Impact Consulting.
It's great to be here. And today we're walking straight into what might be the single most uncomfortable room in the entire nonprofit sector.
Oh, I know this room. You mean the boardroom?
The boardroom, specifically about 20 minutes into the quarterly meeting.
I know the exact moment you're talking about. The finance report is done. The program update was inspiring. Everyone's feeling pretty good. And the board chair looks down at the agenda, clears their throat, and says, okay, let's talk about development.
And the temperature in the room just drops about 10 degrees instantly.
It really does. So today we're doing a deep dive into a piece by Damon Colaluca from CNA, published just this month, February 2026. And the article is called Stop Asking Your Board to Help Fundraise. I have to say, that title probably feels like a massive relief to a lot of our listeners.
It's a provocative title, for sure, but the premise is actually quite rigorous. Colaluca is arguing that silence, the water glass moment, as he calls it.
I love that phrase.
It's so good, right? Where everyone suddenly becomes fascinated by the condensation on their glass rather than making eye contact. He says that's not a failure of motivation.
That water glass moment is such a visceral image. We've all been there. You look around the table and suddenly everyone is very, very interested in their shoes or their notes. And usually we leave those meetings thinking, why won't they just step up? Why are they being so passive?
Right. We blame the people. But the source argues that boards don't fail because they're lazy. They don't fail because they don't care about the mission. They fail because of a role design problem.
A role design?
The job description is fundamentally broken.
So when a development update results in, crickets, that's a systems failure, not a people failure.
Exactly. I mean, think about the phrase help fundraise.
Right.
It's incredibly common, but it's also incredibly vague. And in the ears of a typical board member, who might be an accountant or a teacher, a doctor, not a professional solicitor, that phrase translates to something very specific and very scary.
It translates to go ask your rich friends for money.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that triggers a social survival instinct. People just do not want to monetize their friendships. It feels transactional. It feels awkward.
And Colaluca calls this lazy leadership on the part of the organization. That feels a bit harsh, doesn't it?
It is harsh, I get that, but think about it. If you ask for an outcome, raise more money without defining the inputs or the method, well, that isn't strategy.
Right, it's just a wish.
It's just hope, and hope is not a strategy. So the mission of our conversation today is to deconstruct that vague plea and replace it with a system that is specific, coachable, and actually works.
Okay, so let's start with the baseline. Before we get to the fancy strategies and the new roles, the source draws a pretty hard line in the sand.
Yes, the 100% rule.
Now, I want to pause here and really unpack this.
Yeah.
Because 100% board participation is often, confused with give or get policies. And give or get is a very polarizing concept. Is the source arguing that everyone needs to write a check for $10,000 or get off the board?
No, and that distinction is absolutely critical. A strict give or get policy where you have to bring in a fixed dollar amount can be really exclusionary.
Sure.
It limits your board diversity because it effectively puts a price tag on the seat. What Colaluca is advocating for is 100% participation based on a gift that is personally significant.
Personally significant. I love that framing. So for a wealthy philanthropist on the board, personally significant might be 5 or 6 figures, but for a community rep or maybe a student member, that might be $50.
Correct. The dollar amount is secondary to the act of giving. And there are 2 hard data points on why this matters so much. It isn't just about the cash. The first reason is external signaling. Sophisticated funders, foundations, major donors, they check this metric. They look at the 990. They explicitly ask the question in grant applications.
It's a credibility test, right?
Sure.
If the leadership team, the people closest to the mission, haven't invested their own capital, why should an outsider?
Precisely. Skin in the game. But the second reason is all about internal culture. It prevents resentment. Because nothing kills board morale faster than that perception of freeloading, where 3 people are carrying the financial weight and everyone else is just watching.
And democratizes the commitment. Everyone is a donor, period. It says we're all in this boat together.
Exactly. So that's the baseline. Everyone gives. But the real friction, the real problem happens when we ask them to get. And this is where the source introduces the menu of contributions.
Okay, this is the core framework of the article. And I think this is where the light bulb is going to go on for a lot of people listening. We need to stop looking for fundraisers as like one type of person.
Right. Fundraising is actually a composite of 5 distinct jobs. And most board members are probably only good at 1 or 2 of them. When we ask them to just fundraise, we're asking them to be a Swiss Army knife.
When really they might just be a really good pair of scissors.
Exactly.
So let's walk through these archetypes because this is where the actionable advice lives. If I'm a board member who is terrified of asking for money, I break out in hives just thinking about it. What's on the menu for me?
First up, you have the ambassador.
The ambassador. Okay, this sounds like the lowest barrier to entry.
It is, but you can't underestimate it. It's strategically vital. The ambassador's role isn't to ask. It's to inform and inspire.
Okay.
Their job is to share impact stories, attend community events. They're basically a visibility engine for the organization.
So if I'm at a Rotary meeting or a BBQ or a cocktail party, I'm not closing a deal. I'm just planting a flag.
You are creating the environment where fundraising can happen later. You're warming up the audience. If you have a board member who is super charismatic but just allergic to the ask, you make them an ambassador. You don't force them to solicit.
That's a huge psychological relief. You're not selling. You're just sharing good news. Okay, who's next?
The connector. This is a little more active. This is for the person with the big Rolodex.
The networker.
Yeah.
The person who knows everyone in town.
Right. But again, the distinction is crucial. The connector does not make the ask. The connector makes the introduction. Their metric of success is doors opened.
So the conversation is, I know someone who really cares about literacy. Let me introduce you to our executive director. You two should have coffee.
And that's it. Then they step back. They've transferred the trust from their relationship to the staff.
Yeah.
And that just lowers the blood pressure for the board member. They're not asking their friend for money. They're offering their friend a connection to something they care about.
I see the pattern here. We're slicing the scariest part of fundraising off and just leaving the relational part. What's the third role?
The steward. And frankly, in the economic climate of 2026, this might be the most undervalued and most important role on the board.
Really? Why is that?
Because donor retention is in crisis. Acquisition costs, the money and effort it takes to find a new donor are skyrocketing. The most efficient dollar you raise today is the one you kept from last year.
So the steward is the thank you department.
Yes, but it's not just politeness. This is asset protection. It's defensive strategy. The steward makes thank you calls, writes personal notes, and connects with donors without asking for anything.
Wow, that is powerful. Imagine getting a call from a board member who just says, hey, I'm not calling for money. I just wanted to say thank you.
It's shocking to most donors. It stands out because almost nobody does it. And for a board member who is maybe more introverted or detail-oriented, this is a perfect role. It's high-impact, low-conflict work.
Okay, so we have ambassador, connector, steward. What about the people who love spreadsheets, the ones who actually want to read the audit?
That is your strategist. This is the person who looks at the business model. They aren't opening doors or writing notes. They're looking at the dashboard, spotting risks, and asking, is our reliance on this one government grant a liability?
They're the brain trust. They make sure the whole machine is built correctly.
Exactly. And finally, the fifth role is the giver, which we already talked about. Just being a consistent, personal, significant donor is a valid and crucial role on its own.
The big insight here is that you don't need everyone to be a rainmaker.
You rarely have any true rainmakers on a board, and that's okay. If you have ambassadors warming the room, connectors opening doors, and stewards stopping the leaky bucket, the staff can do the closing.
This whole framing shifts the dynamic from guilt, why aren't you doing more, to strategy play to your strengths. But I want to push on the execution. Even with clear roles, board members are busy volunteers. How do we keep this from slipping back into just, inertia? The source talks about infrastructure.
Yes, you cannot build a fundraising program on good intentions. You need a feedback loop, and that starts with data.
But not just any data. I've seen those board packets with 40-page financial spreadsheets that nobody ever reads.
We call that the audit thump factor. If it makes a loud noise when you drop it on the table, it's too long. No, Colaluca suggests it's a simple one-page monthly dashboard.
One page.
And the metrics need to be forward-looking, not just historical.
So what are we tracking? What are those key metrics?
Don't just show amount raised. That's looking in the rearview mirror. Show donor retention rate. Show the major donor pipeline, how many conversations are active. Show board participation percentage.
So metrics that show the health of the engine, not just the fuel level.
Exactly. If your pipeline is empty today, your revenue will be 0 in 6 months. The board needs to see that risk coming.
The source also takes a bit of a swing at traditional board training. The dreaded weekend retreat.
I think we've all suffered through that Saturday retreat with the 3-inch binder. You spend 6 hours learning, everyone gets pumped up, and by Tuesday morning, the binder's on a shelf and the knowledge has just evaporated.
It's the binge and purge model of learning.
It's completely ineffective. The article argues for microlearning. Kill the retreat. Instead, take 20 minutes in every single board meeting to practice one specific skill.
That seems so much more manageable. What does that look like in practice? A 20-minute drill?
It could be role-playing. Okay, someone asks you what our organization does in an elevator. Go. Or here's a script for a thank you call. Let's all pull out our phones and make one call right now, together.
That normalizes the activity. It stops being a special event and becomes just how you operate.
And it builds muscle memory. If you do that 12 times a year, you actually change behavior. You desensitize the fear of talking about the mission.
This leads us to, I think, the toughest nut to crack. Accountability.
The A word.
Right. In a corporate setting, if you don't hit your KPIs, you get fired. In a nonprofit, these are volunteers, often major donors themselves. How do you hold a volunteer accountable without creating a toxic environment?
The source is very blunt here. Accountability starts at recruitment. If you recruit someone and say, oh, you won't have to do much, just attend 4 meetings, you can't be angry when they do exactly that.
You sold them a low expectations role. You can't just change the terms of the deal halfway through.
Right. But assuming you've set the expectation, accountability needs to be stripped of shame. Shame causes people to hide. It causes them to skip meetings.
So instead of asking, why didn't you raise more money, which is a very shame-based question,
you ask binary role-based questions. Did you make your 5 stewardship calls this month? Did you introduce us to that one contact we discussed?
it's a yes or a no.
It's objective. And if the answer is no, for 3 meetings in a row, you have a data point for a governance conversation. It's not personal. It's about the agreement. Hey, you signed up to be a connector, but you haven't made any connections. Is that still the right role for you?
It sounds like we're just trying to professionalize the volunteer experience.
I think we're respecting it. We're treating their time as valuable. And this connects to the big psychological shift the source calls for, moving from extraction to mission.
This is a really deep point. Explain that difference.
Most people view fundraising as extraction. I am taking money from my friend's wallet. That feels bad. It feels like begging.
And nobody joins a board to go begging.
No, but if you view fundraising as mission, if you truly believe that the money is the fuel that feeds the hungry or cures the disease or saves the park, then you aren't taking anything. You are inviting. You're offering someone a chance to be part of the solution.
That's the difference between a transaction and a transformation.
And the board members who get that, who see themselves as offering an opportunity, they don't burn out, they're energized. They aren't apologizing for the ask. They're excited about it.
So we have the theory, the roles, the psychology. Let's get to the action plan. The source is very prescriptive about what to do this month. So if I'm an ED or a board chair listening to this right now, what is my Monday morning to-do list?
Step 1, adopt the policy. Get that 100% participation rule in writing. Define personally significant giving so everyone understands the nuance. Just stop debating it and make it the standard.
Okay, clear the air, make it official. Step 2.
Create the menu. Don't just talk about it. Actually write down the roles: ambassador, connector, steward, strategist, and ask every board member to sign up for one primary role for the next 90 days.
I like the 90-day time frame. It's a sprint. It doesn't feel like a life sentence.
Exactly. It allows for experimentation. Try being a connector. If you hate it, we can switch you to steward next quarter. It lowers the stakes.
And step 3 is the stewardship sprint.
This is the easiest win you can get. Assign every board member 5 donors to thank. Give them the script, give them the phone numbers, just 5 calls.
It breaks the ice. It proves the phone won't bite them.
Right. And they'll likely get a voicemail, leave a nice message, and feel great about it. It builds immediate confidence.
And finally,
celebrate publicly. When someone opens a door, talk about it in the meeting. When someone makes their stewardship calls, applaud it. We tend to focus so much on the gap, on what we didn't raise. We have to celebrate the behavior we want to see repeated.
It turns the board meeting from a place of deficit to a place of momentum.
Exactly. And, if you're sitting there thinking, I don't even know where to start, the source does mention that CNA has a board fundraising strategy assessment tool.
A way to diagnose before you prescribe.
And for the training piece, they reference their Resolve at E program. But honestly, the specific tool matters less than the commitment to just start.
Don't let another month go by with the water glass stare down.
That is the enemy of progress.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just struck by how much of this is really about respect. We often treat board members like they're problems to be managed, or maybe ATMs to be accessed.
And that's the final thought for me. Board members are leaders. They want to succeed. If we give them a vague job description and then get mad when they fail, that's on us. But if we give them a menu, a clear role, and the tools to do it, we're giving them the dignity of a job well done.
And that's how you turn a room full of awkward silence into a room full of action.
It's the only way.
That's a wrap on this episode of LeadOn. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, we invite you to subscribe and share it with a fellow nonprofit leader. You can find us on Spotify and at leadonpodcast.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and lead on.